where the gamers unite. Along with Aaron and Frosty, we're taking flight. Tune in, level up, turn the quest. In the world of action, we're the best. Welcome to the Town Portal Podcast.
Hello, everyone,
nice.
and welcome to the official Town Portal Podcast, episode 11. My name is Aaron, owner and operator of the YouTube channel Action RPG, and we've got a great show set up for you today. With me, as always, is Diablo 4's #1 superfan, Frostylaroo. Why don't you go ahead and say hi and do your thing, good sir?
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Aaron. I'm really excited about today's episode because we've got an incredible guest joining us. He's the CEO of Moon Studios, the creative force behind the breathtaking Ori games, and most recently, the ambitious and visually stunning No Rest for the Wicked, a game I'm personally having a lot of fun playing. And if that's not impressive enough, this man has a huge one. And yes, I do mean his church warden pipe. Thomas, it's a real pleasure having you on the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Thomas. I have a huge one.
Oh my gosh. Thomas, you just got back from vacation, correct?
Yes, I finally took a vacation. I told my family for quite some time that I'd at some point do a full week of vacation, and that wasn't possible for quite some time, but now I finally did. So, yeah.
Awesome. Where'd you guys go, if you can say?
Oh, I have two small kids, so if we go on vacation, it's some family hotel quite near from where I live, so.
Oh, that's fun. And
Nice.
I'm sorry to hear that you got sick during your vacation. I have 4 kids, and normally you need a vacation from your vacation, so it sounds like that's kind of the same for you.
Tell me about it. Yeah, I feel the same.
Oh, man, that is brutal. All right, well, we've got a great show today. Thomas is going to be with us for about 90 minutes, and we'll see how everything is going. We're going to be talking about the action RPG genre and kind of where it's going, where it's been. We're going to be talking about No Rest for the Wicked, where the game's at, updates coming, and we'll see what Thomas has for us. So, Frosty, you want to jump into the first question, sir?
Well, first question is kind of an easy one. I guess you can just tell us what generally your favorite games were as you were growing up, and if you're playing any games now, excluding games that you've worked on.
Yeah, so let me elaborate. So obviously favorite games that I played when I grew up is, like, and I mentioned this before many times. So, for example, like I grew up in the 8 and 16-bit days, right? So when I was a kid, the NES and Super Nintendo basically defined my life. So the typical favorites just apply to me as well. So I've been a huge fan of things like Zelda: Link to the Past. That is probably still my favorite game ever made, because it's if you look at what is a perfect game, in terms of like how it's put together and so on, A Link to the Past pretty much fits the bill for me. Then obviously I've also been inspired by things like Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night and so on. You can clearly see that in the games that I made, right? So I mean the Ori games. With Ori, the idea was how can we push the Metroidvania genre forward, right? So we had to look at what's been done before. Obviously we looked at things like Super Metroid, Symphony of the Night, etc. And then obviously I also always loved ARPGs, right? Like I was right there when Diablo 1 released. Really liked what was going on there. I thought Diablo 2 was basically the best sequel ever made. And that to me is just such a perfect, like, hey, take the core of what existed already and just perfect everything, right? And then just basically almost perfect the genre, right? Like I think the formula that we have there with Diablo 2, like that defined what the ARPG genre was for the last 2 decades or so.
Yeah.
For the most part. So And very much, the games that I played also like absolutely inspire kind of like the games that we are making, right? So, I mean, with No Rest for the Wicked, the idea from the start was, let's look at where ARPGs are at. Let's look at where that journey has been going, right? And then let's see how we can contribute to that, right? Because we built this crazy team with Moon Studios. And I was just super interested back then in after we did Ori, the idea was, man, we made Ori now. what would happen if Moon Studios would make their own Zelda or something, right? And that then grew into, well, fuck that. We could make a whole ARPG out of it with tons of stats and RPG stuff and so on. And yeah, that was basically the inspiration.
Okay, I have to ask, because Frosty told me this last night, that at some point you were a fan of the RTS genre. I was big Red Alert, big into StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2, Dawn of War, Warcraft 3. Is that true that you used to work on those games?
I worked at Blizzard back then. I've been at Blizzard during the time of like StarCraft 2, Diablo 3, and so on, right? And I worked on StarCraft 2 quite actively. Every single lunch break, we would play games against one another. That's where I actually saw for the first time like RTS high-level play, right? Like you had people there like David Kim actually playing with you during lunch break and so on, and it was just, holy shit, you know? Like that's where I really understood what is the fascination with RTS games, and especially on a high-level play, right? Like if you, like a lot of people when I grew up, right? Like a lot of times RTS was just like people got really into the base building and so on, right? But there's a whole mastery level that you can achieve beyond that, and that's what I saw at Blizzard, and that also inspired me. The very first game we actually wanted to make at Moon, and we couldn't get it greenlit back then, was a project that we called War Soup, and that was supposed to be a first-person shooter mixed with RTS elements, and there was quite some stuff in there that didn't exist in the genre at all, right? Like you had class-based FPS stuff, like so, hey, every class had its own abilities and so on. And then also it was about this whole, yeah, you start out weak, but over the course of a match, you actually gain power and so on. And you had to pick which power progression you are going for and so on.
It's interesting. That sounds fun.
Yeah. There is still a video on YouTube that shows a little bit of what we had back then. But yeah, I love RTSs in many ways.
Are you Team TOS?
Nice.
I'm a pro TOS guy. That'll be my last RTS question.
Nah, Zerg, man. It's all about Zerg.
Oh my gosh. You rush, don't you? You do like Zergling rush or something like that.
Of course.
Of course. Unbelievable.
So, after working for Blizzard, did you immediately go and create Moon Studios? Started working on Ori? Was that the next step, or was there any in between?
Well, I can tell you what happened. So just to get the visa for me to move from Austria to California back then took about 6 to 9 months or so, right? And that was a time where I then said, hey, fuck it, I'll try to kind of like experiment with learning like hardcore how to program and so on, right? So I could make game prototypes and so on. Because if you remember, that was the time when indie games suddenly took off, right? During the PlayStation 2 days and GameCube days and so on, there was really no outlet for a smaller team to make a game anymore, right? Like just to get into retail cost you, at least like $1 to $5 million or something, right?
Jeez.
So it was impossible basically for small teams to make games back then and like put them on a console. Even the indie market didn't really exist back then, right? Especially not in the way that it exists right now. And so when I was at Blizzard, the indie market basically exploded, right? Like you saw games coming out like Braid, Castle Crashers, Limbo, Super Meat Boy, and all of that stuff, right? And I was just so inspired by that, right? I was like, while I was working on these AAA games, I had so much passion for, oh my God, imagine what we could do with a 5-person team or 10-person team where you just really focus on core stuff and genres that have been abandoned or that haven't been done properly in past years and so on, right? And I mean, obviously that market completely blew up, right? Like that market completely exploded in the last few years. And at this point, like I feel like, I mean, indie games are in such a good spot right now, right? Especially compared to AAA. I think that's where a lot of the innovation, where the really interesting stuff happens.
And you could see that too. And I know it's like, I don't know if you consider it indie, but I don't know if, did you play Claire Obscure Expedition 33, team of 33 people?
Yes, I didn't yet. I have it on my list of things that I need to check out. But I was so busy recently with just all the stuff that we did with Wicked. I just didn't have time yet to check it out.
I feel like that game opened up a lot of people's eyes on what a smaller team can do compared to these AAA budgets and these massive studios. I think it's gonna be pointed to for a long time.
I think we reached a level now anyway where you see that whole AAA thing isn't really working anymore, especially not the way it used to, right? Because AAA, even just 10 years ago, so you were a AAA studio when you had like 50 to 100 people, right? That was it. That was like you were a AAA studio. By now, like that has just exploded, right? Like to make a AAA game on PlayStation 5 and so on, if you want to be a Naughty Dog or a Ubisoft or something, you have to have 300, 500, sometimes 1,000 plus developers on it, right? Especially if you consider outsourced studios as well, which is quite bananas. And you can say whatever you want, right? Like the product that you make, if you have 1,000 people working on it, will always be more factory-like compared to a product. Like all the products that you guys grew up with, that you loved, were basically, by today's standards, indie games, right? Like a Diablo 2 was made by a team of basically 50 people at max, right? And so I think the games that we're getting these days, where you have 400, 500, 600 people working on it, I think they fall into a very different category than the games that we grew up playing.
Yeah, and also I can tell like the difference, like from Diablo 2, like an indie kind of game, going to Diablo 3, Diablo 4, you can tell they're catering towards a mass audience. They have a lot of checks and balances.
Oh, for sure.
They derive from what the game originally was. I mean, I most recently played the newest Monster Hunter. That game's been known to be very friction based. It's a lot of friction in the game. It's a very hard game. And the newest one is just a lot easier. You could beat it in like 50 hours and like you're done. And it just isn't what the people expect from the genre. But they were like, hey, people were upset with how hard it was. We wanted to make it easier.
Cater to a bigger audience.
Yeah. But going back to No Rest for the Wicked, now that game, visually stunning. It has ARPG elements, isometric style. There's housing. There's roguelite systems in it. Like, how would you classify its genre?
This is everybody's question. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, so, I mean, I always just called it an ARPG, right? Because it is an action role-playing game. It's not your traditional RPG, right? But by now, that genre definition has kind of become absurd, right? Like when I was in the call with Cizeron, when I had the interview with him, like he basically explained to me the whole, well, ARPG means one thing, but action RPG means another thing, even though that's the fucking abbreviation for action RPG, right? Like it doesn't really make a ton of sense anymore. And really what happened over the past 2 decades or so is that, well, people basically say like ARPG when they mean a game that basically plays exactly like Diablo, right?
Correct. That's why people say Diablo-like, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I don't think that whole Rod Ferguson kind of like everything should be called Diablo-like, right, is correct, because frankly, at this point, Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2 probably did more for the genre than Diablo did in the past 2 decades or so, right? Simply because they, pushed way more things.
There's horses now.
Yeah. But it's just, I still call it an ARPG. To me, the really important, the thing that gets me out of bed every morning is just the foundation that we built, right? Like, so we built this insane foundation for Wicked, right? Like where we can do whatever we want. We have we only introduced the Crucible mode, right? Like that was basically done by us in like 2 months or so. But all the stuff that we have already, like all the enemies, the characters, the scaling, the weapons, all the skills and all of this stuff, right? That's basically what I always wanted to build. So that based on this foundation, we could do a ton of crazy things, right? So at its core, Wicked will always be basically a Souls-like action RPG, I think is what people are okay with, right? Calling it, because it has the animation commit combat system where if you do an attack, you actually commit to it. If you look at, like I just looked at you just playing right now, Aaron, right? Yeah. And to me, the ARPG genre has devolved a little bit. And I know that Breivik agrees with that, right? It has devolved into basically a bullet hell shooter. Like, if I watch the gameplay right now, it's very much just tons of explosions on the screen, tons of numbers. but you're not really playing intentionally anymore, right? Like you're almost playing the meta more than you're playing, the game.
A running
so
simulator.
It's just kind of like numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Running simulator to me means, that, hey, the core gameplay is walking around, right? But with games like Diablo and Path of Exile, it's really just, try to explode as many things on screen as possible. It's almost like cookie clicker, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, right? Because hey, things like cookie clicker have a ton of fans. But it's not necessarily, and I know like people will go crazy when I say this, right? But it's not necessarily skill-based. It's more, like stats-based, right? Whereas you have games like, the Souls games and all of this stuff where it's like, okay, this is clearly skill-based. Like you have to just be good at the game. With Elden Ring and so on, now you can kind of like over-level and so on, right? But I would say these games are more kind of like skill-based. And that's where we also saw, where I think the genre should be going, right? That it should be more intentional. I always thought that when you listen to what Dave Brevik said about Diablo 2, I think for him the first 1 to 30 hours or so of Diablo 2 is basically what he wanted the experience to be like, right? Whereas then in Endgame, because of the maths behind it and so on, everything goes batshit crazy, right? Where it's just, okay, now I frost nova across the entire screen and everything, tons of times.
Yeah.
But that's basically what the genre then has become, right? Like if you look at from Diablo 3 forward, including Path of Exile and so on, you play it like that. It almost feels like watching someone play a bullet hell shooter. It doesn't really feel like Diablo 1 or Diablo 2 anymore, right? And that's where we kind of like wanted to pull back a little bit and go back to that of like, okay, this deliberate and the combat has to feel really satisfying and juicy, and like even just dealing a hit at the right time has to feel like, oh my God, yes, I pulled it off, right? Like I finally killed this big enemy or something, which is a feeling that doesn't really exist in ARPGs, I think, these days anymore, because it's just blasting off as much stuff as you can as soon as possible.
Yeah, when I first played No Rest, I went in thinking, oh, ARPG, Diablo 4. I just should go in and wreck everything. I noticed I was dying.
On the boat? You were dying on the boat?
I was dying everywhere. On the first boss, I'm like, okay, this is very, very frustrating. I did have a good time, not an amazing time, but after the Breach update, I came back with the mindset of, this is kind of like a Dark Souls game. You're going to die. You're going to have to build your character in a certain way. You have to learn moves. You have to anticipate actions. And I absolutely loved it coming in with that mindset. Instead of just kind of breaking away from the current ARPG mindset, it's been a lot more fun. But just tangenting off real quick, you mentioned this is a good base that you've built, and there's so many things you could do. I've heard you talk about possibly adding like a Stardew Valley farm system. Like I even heard tower defense at one point. What are kind of some crazy ideas you've thought of or working on, or that we can possibly share that might or might not be in the future of the game?
Well, so for example, one thing that I'm playing around with right now is because we have all the systems already, right? We have the crafting in the game, we have the combat in the game, we have all of that. One thing that I'm dabbling with right now, and no promises that this will drop anytime soon, right? Of
course.
But I wanted to see what happens if we add a survival mode to the game, right? Simply because, well, we're already currently working on the multiplayer update so that everybody can finally play multiplayer and trade items and all this stuff, right? Like do all the things that you associate with ARPGs normally. And part of that was always the whole, like, we're getting a lot of messages from people saying, hey, I'd love to dive into early access, but I'm a player who plays for the story and I don't want to spoil the story, right? So one of the things that we have been discussing is, well, can we give people a mode where they can just sandbox it, right? And have fun with the world? Because the world that we built is at Moon kind of like we're handcrafting the entire world, right? We never really did the thing where, oh, let's just procedurally generate a flat plane and then have some things, like being a different spot every now and then. We never did that. We always thought, no, it's way more engaging if the level is really built by designers. And then on top of that, we change which enemies you encounter and all of that, right? But every time you go in, like the base of the design should be extremely strong already because a designer basically mapped it out and built it. But then what we're throwing at you, that should be randomized. That should be the thing that feels different every time. And then with that, what you can do is, well, let's let people play the game in a completely different way, right? Like, how about you play the game in a way where the story doesn't matter, where, you know, Sacrament is just like doesn't exist for the NPCs and so on, right? Where it's really just, hey, the world is full of enemies and so on, and you just almost play it like Don't Starve Together or something, right? Where it's just hardcore. Okay, here you go. This is a survival thing now. You can build your base anywhere. You have to be aware of day and night cycles and so on, right? And you kind of get a drift of what I'm saying when I say, like, to me, what we built with Wicked over the years, right, is basically this platform that allows us to do so many great things. And the magic is in making all of that work together, right? Like making all of the housing and the ARPG stuff and everything just really work together. Because that feels super satisfying. And we basically want to build a world that you can live in, right? And that is really cool. So adding these kind of modes and extra stuff that you can do in the game, I think that's super exciting. I think that's super thrilling.
Frosty, you would love that. It's like adventure mode.
What is that, like a Diablo 3?
Diablo 4,
adventure mode?
You don't have to do the cinematic. You could just go into the open world.
Yes.
That's
I
how
don't mind
this
skipping
idea
the
started,
cinematic.
by the way. Like, I wanted to do a free roam mode where there is no story, and like right from the start of the game, you could go to the Black Trench, right?
Yep.
And just, hey, let's just see, right? Like, just basically give people complete freedom, right? Like in the Zelda games that just came out, right? Where it's just, okay, well, we're not putting any barriers there anymore. We're just basically saying, well, if you want to, you know, just fully explore the world right away, we will allow you to do that, right? But then, hey, it would be even more fun to add even more stuff on top of that. So that even people who already played Wicked, because we have players right now on our Discord server, right, that have played for over 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
So even for them, for them especially, like, it would be really fun to kind of like explore the game in a completely new way. And just generally for players, like, there's a ton of retention there, right? Yeah, so you have in the forum, right, like that, hey, in the chat already, there's people that have played 250 hours or something, right? Which is pretty crazy for an early access game, right? That literally, like, we have a good 40 to 50% or so that already played hundreds of hours, which is just bananas for an early access game. So I just want to explore more there, right? Like, and I think you see a certain fatigue right now with how the ARPGs are working. Like, every single time when Riker does an update of, here's what the new Diablo season is about, right? I'm like, oh, and there's a slight hint of disappointment, right? When it's like, it should be fucking thrilling, right? It should just be, we can do so many things in this genre still. And for some reason, we're not. And I think that goes straight back to, you know, like, I don't think Blizzard, like, I think the developers at Blizzard probably have the same ideas that we have, but they're probably getting told, no, right?
No.
And I just don't get it. Like, you could exploit that genre so much and just squeeze the fun out of it, right?
What
like,
we think
just
is
squeeze it for
happening
what it's
is
worth.
that what content creators, what we theorize is that, you know, you get vampire powers and you get boss powers and you get witch powers and you get chaos power. Like, all the same seasons kind of feel the same, at least if we're talking about Diablo. And basically, the game is likely in the green every season. So since it's profitable, it's like, why innovate? And that kind of goes back to what you were saying about AAA. You know, there's so much more to it than just making the best possible video game. It's is the game profitable for the future, you know?
Yeah, they're catering
That's
to
the
the
thing
mass audience.
Yeah,
And not
that's the
for
thing I
people who
don't get,
love
though,
the
right?
genre.
That's the thing I don't get, though, right? Because, like, you could make some small changes, right? Like, look at what Epic did, right? They had their Fortnite thing, right? Which was Fortnite Save the World or whatever the fuck it was called, right? Then they made some changes and so on, turned it into, like, basically the Fortnite that we have today right now is basically a mod of that game, right? And it fucking blew up, right? Like, suddenly that blew up. And I don't understand why you wouldn't try to do that, right? I don't understand why wouldn't you give players just crazy things, right? Like, and then, hey, maybe one of those things completely fucking works, and just be inventive and creative with it, right? Versus, well, we did another season and there's a little bit of this and we changed some sliders over there, right? I think they're just being stifled, and I just don't get it. I think at this point in the industry where we're at, with AAA, it's almost like the movie industry, right? Like, I don't think you should expect the next great movie to come out of a blockbuster studio, right? Because it's not going to happen. Like, they're not going to take risks.
A sequel, a prequel, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, they're not going to, or another superhero movie or something, right? Like, they're not going to take risks. They're going to do what is expected, what is basically showing them, okay, yeah, this will make some profit, predictable profit every year, right? What you don't have is, let's just be fucking crazy. By the way, you saw the same thing in the music industry, right? In the 60s, 70s, and so on in the music industry, the producers just had no fucking idea. They just like banked on creatives, right? Bet on them. And then, well, one person works, the other one doesn't, right? But then, that person that works, suddenly you get, oh, that band, the Beatles, right? Like, they're great. Let's do more of that, right? And these days, it's the same thing. Like, you wouldn't, like, I literally don't think you could have the Beatles in this environment that we're in right now. It just wouldn't really work. Especially, you wouldn't let these guys just write songs, right? Like, you would have a whole producer team and so on, tell them exactly what to look like and what they have to do and what songs they have to write based on historic data of what worked before and so on. You would never allow just a group of crazy people to just go nuts, right? But that's what you need to reach those kind of levels.
I mean, speaking of that, just in comparison to Diablo 4 No Rest real quick, they have a roguelike system in Diablo 4. It's Infernal Hordes, and every round you have an option to change what you get, but it's like, do you want 2 extra material from killing this monster, or do you want to spawn 1 extra of this monster? And it feels identical every time you go through it. Then when you play the Crucible and No Rest, I played it like 5 times in a row. I picked certain powers and materials and upgrades, and it feels different almost every time. It's dramatically different. And I just don't understand why they went just so basic on that, and they're not even trying to just push it a little further, make it cool, Like, I don't get it. But, speaking of cool, multiplayer systems coming up. Do you have any new information that you might want to share about the multiplayer system?
And there's already tons of people asking about a date. Obviously, we know you probably can't give us a date, but like this calendar year, next major update, and you can...
Yeah, it will absolutely be this calendar year. So I mean, we are obviously already playtesting the crap out of it, right? Like, and we have been for quite some time. It will basically be in a couple of months. Like, that's the idea right now, right? I don't want to say the exact date, but we're already playtesting it. We just want to get it out in a way that is great, right? That is, everything works. And multiplayer is just really complex, right? There's lots of little edge cases, especially in a game like Wicked. Like, oh my God, what happens if in this particular scene, one player has triggered this cutscene and the other player's on that hill up there somewhere? And does he get pulled into that or not? And so on. So we're basically right now just fixing the edge cases, making sure that everything works. Then we will PTR it, right? So that more people can dive into it, give us feedback and so on. And then we'll release it. That's the idea.
We have so many specific questions around it, like housing and how all that stuff is, stuff's going to work.
Let's get into it, but let's define the basics, right? So in terms of multiplayer, the thing that I saw in the ARPG genre, right, is that I think that's another thing that we kind of like have to criticize from a developer's side point of view a little bit, right? Like, I think you guys all know the story, right? Like with Diablo 1, they made Diablo 1, and literally like a couple months before release, Condor, Blizzard North back then, didn't have any fucking multiplayer in there, right? So then they basically told that to Blizzard, and they sent some people over to kind of like just hack multiplayer in the last minute, right? In the last couple of months before release. And it did feel hacked in, right? And then with Diablo 2, they kind of like expanded upon that. You had the whole BattleNet thing. You had the chat system, right? And all of that. But they still had to cut some stuff. Like, Dave Brevik back then mentioned that he wanted to have the BattleNet towns and so on, right? In many ways, that is actually the vision that we are finally now fulfilling 20 years later, right? Because that is basically what Sacrament is. So if you look at the multiplayer, the way we built it and the way it's existed now for a long time, I always thought the multiplayer in ARPGs is a little bit stupid, because what happened there is that, well, you create a game and that's now your safe game, right? And now you invite people as a guest temporarily, right? But you never really get that feeling of, oh, we're sharing something together, right? Like I'm just always get the feeling of like, oh, I'll temporarily invite a buddy, right? But what I always wanted to get, and what we've been trying to do with Wicked, was the whole feeling of like, I create a realm and I now share that realm with other people. So now and that realm now always exists, right? So now if I go to sleep and Frosty keeps playing, and I go back in the morning, I see all the shit that Frosty did, right? Maybe he left a message in the community chest box where he said, hey, Thomas, I found this crazy armor set for you, right? I put it here. Have fun. By the way, I need a sword like this one, right? Can you find that for me, right? And then I see, oh my God, he already built an insane house or something right in the town. And I don't want to lag behind. And he already basically reached level 20 overnight, right? Because he's a bastard and, that kind of thing. And
That is true. So somebody clip that. That is a factual. Sorry.
Okay.
Go on.
But that's the feeling that I always wanted to have, right? That I could wake up in the morning and I already see what other people did and so on. And now I could catch up and so on. And we're actually sharing the game together, almost like Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo or something, right? Where it's like, no, to play together, you had to actually play together, right? It was not just temporarily guest invite, right? If you look at the Souls games, it's the same thing, right? Like if you want to invite someone, it's even worse there, right? Like you temporarily invite a guest, they help you with a boss, then they get kicked off your server. And it's just, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. If I want to play with somebody, I want to play with them for a whole session, right? Diablo allows that, but then, like they have their save game over there and I have my save game over there, and we're not actually sharing that, right? I wanted to have quests there where it's like, okay, this is a pretty big fucking quest that we actually have to solve together, right? By you doing a bit of stuff here and me doing a bit of stuff here. That was also the idea behind building up Sacrament, that you needing, for some projects, you need a whole bunch of resources and so on. And as we increase in tiers, well, more and more of that will happen, right? You will need more and more resources. So if more players play, everybody can contribute to that, right? And you will be able to do stuff faster that way. So that's the whole idea, that we have shared realms that always exist. You don't have to the classic style kind of like just temporary guest model, where you just temporarily invite some people to your realm and then they get kicked off, or if the host leaves, that whole party disbands now, right? Simply because, well, the host is basically the host. That doesn't exist with us. We basically built the whole game on a network layer called Quantum. And in terms of like the online thing, it's just basically the server is basically just an input relay, right? So if the host goes offline, the game still exists, right? Like, so it doesn't matter. And then everybody can be proud of like, sharing one realm together and like finishing all these quests and having a perfect character on that. And it makes it so much easier to trade stuff and so on, right? Because if you want to trade things like in Diablo 3, by the way, I mean, they basically removed the trading, from there, right? And it makes it so much easier to trade stuff because it's like everybody can have a house. We even like the housing stuff. The idea was always that, hey, you could build a house and then you could turn it into an armory for the entire server, right? For the entire realm, where it's like, hey, I'll turn this particular house that I bought into an armory where I put a weapon rack up and then I could put all the cool weapons in it that I found and set prices for them. And then another player could interact with my weapon rack and all they see is a shop window, right? And well, they can basically buy stuff now and so on.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, and then exactly. So, and then you could do the same thing with a bar, right? Like I could create a bar and like pluck all the berries and all of this stuff and just throw them into wine barrels and they become wine. If another player interacts with that, boom, now they can buy the wine from me, right? Or my beer and all of that stuff. And then when you come back online, you see all this stuff, right? Like, hey, this house produced a bunch of stuff for me. So that's basically what we're after. Like, it's a completely different system than what you currently see in ARPGs. I do hope that influences the developers out there, because I do think the system is better. Obviously, we will also allow you to invite a guest, right? Because every now and then you just want a stranger on your realm, like, hey, I want to trade with this person that I met on the internet, and he has this particular sword, and I want that, and I'll temporarily invite him. We can initiate a trade, and then I kick him off, right? But generally speaking, the idea is that you invite citizens to your realm, and once you invite a citizen, like, you have to be careful who you invite, because they have the same permissions that you do, right? That's the kind of idea.
What comes to mind, I don't know if either of you guys played it. The only game recently I have played of the last few years that I really enjoyed that kind of sounds like what you described is V Rising. V Rising, you have a server, everybody plays the same realm, you literally do quests together, you raid together, you build castles, you share resources, and it really is fun. And then you turn on PvP and you could blow up each other's castles and fight. And it is the only game that I really, really enjoy that has those features. So hearing that that kind of design and style is coming to No Rest for the Wicked is pretty exciting.
When you're adding like a bunch of people to your realm, like I'm not sure how many will be max. I'm sure you don't know yet.
It's up to 4. Yes, no, it's up to 4 right now.
Okay. Yeah. Would you consider making like a guild house where it's one house, 4 different rooms, so everyone's just kind of in a central spot instead of trying to find where did this person live? Or maybe there's an icon, like any ideas around that yet?
Yeah, well, we already did. And you just don't know about it, right? At the very top of Sacrament, there's this whole fortress. And the idea with the fortress, like, it's closed off right now. You can't actually get to it, right? But it already exists. There is a fortress up there. And then the idea is, well, we'll just unlock that, right? So that's the same as like buying a castle in Ultima Online, right? Where at start, you don't have the resources to buy the castle immediately, right? The fortress. And so you will have to have a house for some time, right? But then over time, like, you know, you'll outgrow that house, right? Like, you will want to put more and more stuff in there, more crafting tables, more refineries, more stuff. The housing stuff is basically supposed to feel a bit like Factorio, right? Like, where you want basically that fucking factory going and like burning resources the whole time, creating stuff for you, right? And you want as many of that as possible and so on. And so you go out there, get a bunch of resources, and then you bring it to your home, right? And like have it burn a bunch of stuff and like, you know, produce for you while you're not there. That's the whole idea. And that is basically the thing that people will share together, right? Once you have the fortress, now you like that has the most space that you will ever get, right? And then you can share it with everybody else and, you know, enjoy.
Frosty, I want a room in your castle, all right? Because I know you're going to unlock that.
Sure, no problem.
All right, perfect.
You mentioned like higher tiers will do more materials. Currently, vendors can go to tier 2 or 3. Are you planning on upgrading them to another tier, to tier 4?
Yeah, of course. I don't know why people think that for 1.0, for the final game, we will still be max level will be 30, right? Obviously not. Like, we will obviously increase the level and there will be whole new tiers of weapons and so on, right? We'll have to see how we pace it out. Right now in the game, like in the editor version, we have up to 6 tiers. But right now in the live build, we only unlock 3 of them. So that's all you've ever seen. You've basically seen half of the game. And all the other ones we just didn't unlock yet, right? Simply because, well, we want to hold some things back. We want to make sure that pacing-wise, all of this stuff works out. But yeah, there will be, with 1.0, there will be whole new tiers, a way higher level for your character. And
nice.
So awesome. Nice. That is cool. So when it comes to multiplayer, how will resources actually be shared? If I grinded all night while Frosty was asleep and then I go to bed and he wakes up, can he just take all my stuff? Or to be like, this is the shared stash and this is the don't touch my crap stash?
Yeah, so there's a permission system. Some of that you can already see on the house. I don't know if we actually unlocked it now in live. But there's a permission system. So in your house, the little plaque that you use to actually buy the house, you can also set the permissions, right? Where you can say, hey, I want Frosty to be able to enter my house or not, right? Like it just shows any player on the realm. And then you can just, you know, like decide, okay, well, that person has access or doesn't. And then same thing on any of the chests and so on, right? Like you can literally decide who has access to that particular chest and who doesn't. And then obviously you can just, like create a whole shared house and so on if you want to, right? Where you just make it available to everybody, make all the stuff in there available to everybody, etc. And I think most people will use the fortress for that, right? Where it's just, hey, I have my own house where I have my own stuff in there. And then if we want to share stuff together, it's the same as in Ultima Online, right? Where you will just have a huge castle and then you drop your stuff in there. That's where you do all the community stuff and so on. But that's that social feeling that I want in there, right? Like similar to Ultima Online, where people would sit down and talk to one another and basically do the whole RPG part, right? Like to actually role play, right? Like where you could, create a whole barbecue place in the fortress and then somebody makes a whole bunch of buffs for the entire group and that kind of thing.
I got one more thing on multiplayer. I know you were talking about it's still ways off PvP arena type stuff, but that aside, because I'm personally not super into fighting someone directly. Is there any other kind of mini games you might have thought of, like competing against them in the Crucible, a tower defense, maybe even a Gwent card-like system in the game? Anything along those lines? I know you probably don't have anything fully fleshed out yet, just thoughts.
Even if it's just dueling, like, oh, just for fun, I want to see if I could kill Frosty, right? And we accept something like that.
Well, with the PvP stuff, we obviously, like, I was there when Blizzard made Diablo 3, right? And I saw exactly why PvP didn't work, right? So the problem with PvP in Diablo 3 was it was fun if you had a predefined character, right? Like if you literally could tell the player, like, okay, here you go, you only have these abilities and that's it, right? And that was okay. That's, by the way, what Blizzard let you play a couple of times during BlizzCons and so on, right? And that was okay. It wasn't like super fun, but it was okay to play. But then once you actually had crazy builds, it just became a chaotic mess, right? And it just didn't make any sense anymore and it wasn't fun and so on, right? So for Wicked, what we basically said from the start is that, well, every single class that we're building, we're also testing it in a tournament mode in PvP, right? We want to make sure that we don't like block ourselves in the future from like PvP stuff and so on. At the same time, we are not like Wicked is at the core, it's basically the same as a fighting game. It's as deep as a fighting game, meaning we work on a frame by frame basis, right? Like I literally have like our timeline system allows you to literally say, okay, from this frame on, the collision of that weapon will be active. At this frame, you will apply damage. At this frame, this happens and so on, right? So it's the same exact thing as like any Street Fighter or a Smash Brothers or any of this kind of stuff, right? And you have to define it that way, right? Because it's like, okay, in the mastery level, like people exploit that stuff, right? Like people know exactly what gives you frame advantage, footsies becomes a thing and so on. The whole mind control thing, right? Like fucking with other players, like just on a mental level and so on. All of that becomes important. And so we did this throughout production, right? Like we did this throughout and just tested all this stuff with multiplayer and so on. And the arena has always just been super fucking fun. We already had players like, stay up till 5 a.m. in the morning, right? And I come in early in the office and I'm like, why are these guys still online? And they're actually just still fighting one another in the arena and challenging each other and so on. It's always been super fucking fun. We always had this mode where it's like, well, it's basically just a death match, right? Where there's an announcer who's like, in the red corner, this player is, and then in the blue corner, it's this guy, and then you have to kind of like, okay, win 3 matches and the first player who basically wins 2 wins, right? And that's the idea. Like that's what we still want to introduce. I think that will be super fun. And then we will have to see regarding if we allow that outside, if we do invasions and so on, right? Generally, right now, what I can tell you is we also have to look at market conditions. What I'm seeing right now is that, well, like Aaron, for example, you played Wicked after Breach Refined, right? Yep. That's the time where you jumped in and said, well, I'm going to do a full playthrough. I'm going to give it a go now, right? And I do think the product is already in a pretty good place. I think it's pretty obvious where we have to refine things still and add more content and do more things, add more end game things, deeper systems and so on. But it's already in a pretty good place. But we have a lot of players like on the console side that never got to play, right? And we're getting about 200 to 300 messages a week from players that are like, when is this game finally shipping on console? I want to play this on my PlayStation 5 and so on, right? So, and then the other thing that we're constantly getting is, why is it still in early access, right? Like everybody's saying it's cool, so I don't want to play unfinished games and so on. So what we will do is we will release it sooner, like we will get out of early access sooner than we thought initially, simply to get out of this, right? And to serve consoles and so on as well, because the whole doing early access on consoles is just a clusterfuck. Like, I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah.
So we want to get out of that. That does not mean that 1.0 is then the final version and like it will never get any updates anymore, right? We will basically just say, okay, well, here's the 1.0 version. It has the finished campaign for, the 1.0 version where it's like, okay, it's a fully told story. And it does all these extra features. And by the way, it's on consoles and everybody can play it, right? Because right now the whole industry is in a weird state, right? Where we hear from a lot of players like, hey, they don't want to get into early access at all. And that's a huge hurdle for them because unfinished game and this and that, right? But if you play Wicked right now, it's really fucking fun. There's quite a lot of stuff that we have to tweak and stuff that we can easily, make even more addictive or add more depth and so on. And that's where I'm saying, I'm really proud of that foundation that we built, that we almost like look at it as a platform that we can just expand over time. And I do think that that's something interesting. That's an interesting thing. Like if you look at games like Fortnite and Minecraft and so on, right? These games have existed now for a decade or more, right? And people are still playing them. There are these evergreen games that don't need a sequel, and then 2 years later, another sequel, and then 2 years later, another sequel, simply because, well, the developers just keep updating them, right? And I think that's the direction that we want to take with Wicked as well. That is just that you get no rest for the Wicked, and over time, it just gets more and more and more stuff, right? That we don't basically ask you like every 2 years or so, hey, by the way, now there's no rest for the Wicked 2, and then another 2 years. Now there's no rest for the Wicked 3, and every time you have to pay full price or something, right? We will just do the expansion model of just, if you like the game, and you want to play the new content, you buy the expansions, but the game is the game. And we want it to be an evergreen title that you can always play, and on every platform, and cross-play and cross-save and so on.
I could see how that's a hard decision for you guys at Moon Studios, where, because I follow you on socials and you post, it doesn't matter what you post, the comments are multiplayer when the hell can I play this on consoles? Yes. It's literally, that's every single comment. But on the flip side of that, you want to get out of early access, but you only have one shot at a first impression, right? So obviously the marketing for 1.0 and getting creators and the buzz. So you want the game to be as polished and as finished as possible. So I could see how you're trying to play that balancing act of like, when is the right time? It's probably pretty difficult.
Yeah, it is. At the same time, I mean, I think we get out of early access what I really wanted, right? Like I think back then when we were with Private Division and with Take-Two, basically, the whole idea was I was scared shitless of just releasing an ARPG and basically calling it done, right? Because it doesn't work that way. Like these genres are so fucking complex that if you just try to release it and have it finished at the first release, there's no fucking way. Like it's just that you're never gonna have it completed, right? Especially because of complexity, right? Like there's just no way. So we did get a lot of that feedback already, right? And we see exactly what players love and what they don't and so on, right? And I think that'll always keep happening, right? But I think already at this stage, you're like, you're looking at a game that is already in a pretty good state. And then 1.0, when it happens, right? Like we will have even more time to kind of like perfect it, polish it and so on. And at that point, I feel pretty sure that if we release it, it'll be a 9.5 out of 10 kind of game, right?
That's awesome.
That's the idea.
Okay.
So speaking of completing the campaign for 1.0, at the end of the current campaign, you are presented with this crazy looking gothic Bloodborne style city. And I'm just like, I want to go down there. I've jumped off, just being like, just let me land there. That's definitely coming, right? It has to be. I'm so excited for that. Come on.
The bats and everything everywhere.
Yeah, so Kalen is the lost city, right? Like the campaign basically for 1.0 ends in Kalen, right? Like it ends with Kalen and so So you will be able to get to Kalen with the 1.0 release. But obviously, we also need to make sure that the end game after that, right? Like that there's tons of things that Black can still do and so on. That I always wanted to feel like, okay, when I complete the campaign, I only actually saw like 30-40% of some or so of what the game actually has for me in store, right? That's the idea. But yeah, we will expand even further, right? Like I think already, like people really liked where Breach was going. Obviously, we had some difficulty at the start with like, hey, some balance was off and so on because we had the game not live for some time because of the whole private division thing where we had to buy the rights back and so on.
Yeah,
and we just didn't get that kind of feedback, right? Like we just had it tweaked to what our developers really like, right? And it was just overtuned a bit. But I think now we tuned it pretty well. I think right now it's actually a little bit on the easier side. So we'll probably have to steer it to be a little bit, more difficult anyway, because we have the difficulty modes now either way, right? So if you have a hard time with the normal mode, right, like you can always switch to the easier mode and enjoy it that way. But yeah, there will just be yet another one of those basically huge updates once 1.0 drops, right? Where it's just, okay, now the world is even more expanded. There's even more areas. There's even more new modes and so on. And there's some crazy stuff that we're still trying to push. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but one of the things that I've been playing with recently, simply because I saw Asmongold play Wicked, and he always kind of like every single stream that he does for Wicked, right? He brings up the notion of, hey, top-down is cool, but wouldn't it be fun to see like what it looks like in third person? So I did a third-person test, right? And people went fucking crazy, and they loved
I didn't
it, right?
see
and I was
that.
like, oh, you didn't? Yeah. So I just also posted in our Discord forum yesterday. In our Discord group, I posted another video where you see basically what that looks like right now, and it basically looks and feels like Dark Souls, right? So even just to attract that audience, right? I think that would be an interesting thing to add, where you could play Wicked in that way, and it's just feels completely different.
It's like you can just zoom in like mid gameplay and go into like over the shoulder third person view would be pretty cool.
Yeah, wow. But that's basically what I have right now. So you can do that. Obviously, the world, like No Rest for the Wicked, is a top-down game. It has always been designed with top-down in mind. The level designs are made with top-down in mind and so on. But, I mean, I just tried it, and it works pretty fucking well. It's really fun. So, I think that would be cool. And especially, like, we've gotten so many posts from people that just play Wicked also for style, right? Like, hey, they have this character that looks really cool, and they just want to zoom in more, right? And see their character in full force and so on, and have all of that be a little bit more immersive. So it's cool in that sense, right? Like they wanted a photo mode basically, right? And the cooler version of a photo mode is just let them fucking play in third person, right? And, make photos that way.
All right, I'm looking at it right now, I think. No, I think I found it. Somebody posted it on YouTube. Switching to scene 2. Is this it?
So keep in mind, that was an early test that I did, right? Where I just literally tested it for the first time. It was obviously not tweaked and so on. You can also find a video on the Discord forum where I did another test like that. And this is the kind of fun thing about early access, right? That I can literally, as a developer, just go in and share stuff like that, right? Like, here's a fun experiment that we did. And it was just this, what you're seeing there, Aaron, right, is like literally the test that I did in one day, right? So the camera code wasn't really there yet, like the camera collisions and so on, I didn't really fully figure out at that point yet. But I have all of that now. And it plays pretty fucking well. So, and it allows you to kind of like explore the game and like play the game in a new way. So
it is a totally different experience for sure. Just even watching it. Yeah. But Frosty, I think it'd be hard to play it this way because a lot of times it's like, you see the reward on the cliff, and it's like, how do I get to that cliff to get that reward? And you wouldn't. You hear what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I feel like
the world's designed for isometric. So
correct.
It's still really cool looking, which is why it would be cool to just go into it for some fights and then pop back out, kind of look around.
Yes.
There might be some boss fights, like the guy who jumps in the air might be hard to see him in the air and see where he's landing in this view, but I'm sure with the camera adjustments, it should be fine. But it's definitely really cool looking.
That is pretty cool.
We will definitely PTR this, right? So everybody on our PTR service and so on can just play it that way. Obviously, there's still quite some work involved to kind of like put it into shippable form. But that's one of the things that I think is just interesting, right? Like, let people play that way and like, let's see what they think. And, but it basically, like, the idea is just, yeah, if you want to play it like Dark Souls, right? Like a Souls game, like Elden Ring or something, you can, you know?
Does development time on this, is it pretty demanding? Like literally taking a game from isometric to third person, or is it fairly simple?
Camera code is always difficult, right? At the same time, there's lots of papers out there. You know, like, hey, we did 3D games now for a good almost 3 decades or so, right? There's lots of papers out there that I just read and were like, okay, I'm just copying a bunch of these algorithms and so on, right? And that kind of thing. So yeah, it's demanding, but you know, like, it's not like it's not like ultra hard, right? There's a lot of other stuff that we had to do for Wicked that was way harder to figure out than adding a third-person camera.
Okay, got it.
So, you mentioned the game felt slightly on the easier end, and you've added difficulty modes. I really like the game. I played a lot. I like the hard difficulty. I actually enjoyed when the Breach first launched, and it was like 10 times harder than it should have been. But that aside, I'm playing on the hardest difficulty. It's got a 20% experience gain, which feels nice. But once I beat the game, it's like, what's the point of playing on hard other than just having the experience? You have plans on maybe adding more rewards for playing on harder difficulties, or you know, anything along those lines?
Can you juice?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you juice up Endgame to get better rewards?
That's basically the whole thing that I wanted to get to, right? Like, what you guys are talking about is basically like, just make the end game infinitely replayable, right? And that's the goal. That you basically have this, hey, if I want to perfect my builds, then okay, this is going to take me hundreds of hours or something, right? The other thing with that is also the job class system stuff. So right now we have the attribute system, which does its job and does it pretty okay, right? But it's not a system that I think is perfect. I already mentioned officially, right? Like, I want to make a change to that because I think there's a better system that exists that I want to employ. And I already have like all the design documents that we've been working on it recently already and so on. That would change the game quite significantly in terms of, because right now, a lot of times, like, you have that experience of like, hey, I found a really cool weapon, but can't use it because it doesn't fit my attributes, right? And so with the whole job class system, the idea is, well, the weapon that you equip is basically like that turns you into that class, right? So if you use a straight sword, you level the squire class, right? If you use a great sword, you level the knight class and so on. And then that unlocks all the runes that you can use and so on, right? So will not limit you in that way anymore, where it's just, hey, I can't use that particular weapon. It's just when you make that switch, now you're actively playing a different class, basically, right? Because that's what it is in Wicked, right? Like, if you switch from a great sword to a staff, now you're basically playing a sorcerer or something, right? A wizard, sorcerer, that kind of class. And now you will level into those runes, right? Like, now you'll learn Fireball and Fire Blast and Armageddon and all of these spells and that kind of thing. And so ultimately, you will have that one character that can just do a shit ton of stuff, and you will want to master everything, right? In many ways, with the end game, I think what people want and what I want is, just give me a shit ton of bars that I can fill up, right? Like, just tons of stuff that I love to master, right? And that whole Final Fantasy Tactics thing, because that's what I mentioned there. The whole Square Enix thing and what they did with like Final Fantasy Tactics and then with Final Fantasy 11 and 14 and so on. There's some really good, smart ideas there, right? And some of that stuff we will absolutely take over. And some of that stuff we'll add our own spin to it. Especially given how our runes work, how our enchantments work, and so on, right? But ultimately, what you guys want is an end game that is super deep, right? Where you could literally spend 1,000+ hours and still be entertained. That's the goal.
You know, I will say that when I did the full playthrough and you were there helping me through it as I was screaming, I I love what you just said. There's something that drives me crazy is when video game developers give us an illusion of choice. It's like, here's 10 different attributes that you could pick from, but I want to use a bow. So since I want to use a bow, I put it all into dexterity. And it's like, oh, you don't have any life. And it's like, yeah, I don't have any life because I have to put it in dexterity to be able to use the weapon I want. So the fact that I play a game is called Dwarven Realms, it does that. The weapon you choose, you level up that weapon. And if you pick a different weapon, you have to level up that. But once they're leveled up, you could swap freely between them so that you don't have to worry about being stuck behind something. I love that design decision. Very smart, and the game will play, I think it'll play so much better. But then it leads to the question, so then what attributes are you selecting? Is it just like, do you want health? Do you want stamina? Do you want focus? So now like your attribute selections will be tailoring your build compared to like defining it?
Yeah, so the way it will work is you will still have the base specs, right? Meaning, hey, you will still kind of like level into health and stamina and those things, but we're taking away the main attributes that we had so far, right? Like strength, dex, faith, int. And that we're actually putting into the classes, right? So ultimately what you'll want is the level, if you think about the leveling experience, right? Right now the leveling experience is you level up, you put, let's say 3 points into health, right? And that makes your health go up by like 10, 15% or so, right? That's not the best leveling experience that I could think of, right? Ultimately what I want is just like, here's your character, here's all the building blocks, and you just pick from a whole bunch of features, right? So as you level, oh, finally unlock this feature and I can put it on my class, right? Or now I unlock this feature and I can put it on my class. And it's all just about building blocks and features, right? Like, and then it's up to you to decide, well, which of those will I pick? Because you can't pick everything, right? Like you will have to decide, do I want to play this character that has, you know, like this particular health stat, basically health trait, or, you know, do I pick more stamina here? Or do I want to have a feature where I like, hey, I can walk on water, or any of this kind of stuff, right? I think that's fundamentally more interesting, right? Just putting 2 points into stamina is, okay, I get it. Like, it's cool, but it's the same as like, hey, pick a building block that just allows, like, gets you more stamina. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That when you level, it should be, we'll give you an interesting feature versus, oh, we'll just allow you to change the math a little bit. You know what I mean? And that makes it generally a little bit more understandable for people in general. And I think what it does, that's what happens if you play Final Fantasy Tactics and so on, right? It just automatically adds this insane retention thing, right? Because ultimately, most people want to master. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I still have a cough. Most people will want to just fucking master everything, right? Like if there's still a class and abilities to master, then just, you know, like you will still want to unlock everything.
Yeah.
And that's just fun.
Yeah, I got two questions on this. One is, I mean, I'm guessing the system is like, if you want to learn Blink, you level up a wizard, you unlock Blink, then you can switch to your rogue class, but still use Blink. And is that something like you're just able to get that? And then also, if you max out a class, is there any plans on maybe getting like a permanent buff? You max out wizard, now your magic is like 10% stronger or something along those lines, no matter what class you are.
Again, as I said, it will be building blocks, right? Meaning if you play the wizard, you will unlock Blink. And what I still want is you can mix and match stuff, right? Because ultimately I want people to kind of like come up with the kinds of, like with all kinds of classes, right? If you have a particular class fantasy, then I want you to be able to enable that, right? Like if you want to play a Grim Reaper and we're not officially supporting that, right? Then you should be able to have enough tools in the game to actually do that yourself, right? And if that includes Blink, then cool. Or if you want to play like a necromancer kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Wait, what? Necromancer?
Yeah, but a battle mage or something, right? Like where you go around with a huge warhammer, right? But then at the same time you use that warhammer to spawn entities, right? To spawn skeletons or something. You should be able to do that as well. And so that's really fucking cool, right? That's such a more interesting experience to me than just, oh, I leveled up, now I can, put 2 points into stamina to make my experience go up, my stamina go up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Is a necromancer planned for No Rest for the Wicked? I'm sorry, you said necromancer, and you could carry on with that thought.
We are certainly testing that right now. Yes. So
Nice.
Obviously, necromancer is always one of the most played classes, right, in ARPGs. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a question of time.
Okay, like battle pet, necromancer, just need some time on that. Any thoughts on shapeshift, druid, those kind of classes?
We'll have to see. Again, like I said, right, like even at 1.0, we will not have everything in there, right? Like we will still need to leave some stuff for expansions and for future stuff and so on. But obviously, like a lot of that stuff is, more of a question of time, right? Like more of a when instead of an if, right? Obviously, the whole shape-shifting thing comes up quite often, right? But we'll just have to do it bit by bit. It's not something that we've tested already. It's not something that we have even in, or, like in the editor right now. But as I said, right, with the platform that we built, and I call it a platform, it's exactly for those reasons, right? There's a lot of crazy shit that we could do, and I want to exploit that, right? I really want to go nuts with that, and I think players will just go ape shit. I really enjoy, like, when we do those Wicked Insights, right? I want to have a lot of these one more things. And by the way, the one more thing is way fucking cooler than the whole season thing in some other ARPG, right? That's the idea. That's like, we want to go fucking ape shit with it.
I noticed with the Breach, basically expansion, it was a ton of stuff. Like, you like to just pack a bunch of things, one major patch. It's definitely more hype to do it that way. You can market it better. I know the few months down the road, we're getting the multiplayer patch. Is that going to come along with anything like new spells, new weapons, new endgame, the class systems? Is there anything else that's going to come with multiplayer?
There's got to
that
be
you might
something.
be able to mention?
Well, I don't want to spill the beans, right? But for fucking sure. Like, I mean, we have multiple departments working on the game all the time, right? And if they come up with something cool, then yeah, that'll be one of the one more things in the next Wicked Insight.
How big is the team working on Wicked right now?
It stayed pretty consistent now for quite some time. So we are around 90 people.
Okay. That's like a good AA studio, 90 people.
It's that kind of size, right? Like we generally at Moon, like the idea was always we want to have elite developers. Like to actually get a job at Moon, you need to be fucking really great at your work, right? Like at your job. And you need to have a lot of experience. You need to have worked in some of these games already and contributed in a meaningful way. But the idea is always, no, we don't want to become a studio that has like 300, 400, 500 people where we then have to, oh, Thomas now can't actually work on the game anymore because he just has to manage people now, right?
Yeah.
I think the power is in, no, you still want Paul McCartney and John Lennon write the actual songs, right? Instead of them becoming managers.
So are you Paul McCartney or John Lennon?
That's a good question.
I'm both.
That's probably for later.
Where's the studio located? Where's your guys' actual studio?
There is no location.
No?
So that's the other thing that we decided back then, right? Like, and yeah, people are mentioning Chris Wilson back there, right? Like in the chat.
Yeah.
I see him in the same way that, like, basically Chris Wilson had the same job at Grinding Gear that I have at Moon, right? Like somebody who really defines the vision and just squeezes the fucking fun out of it, right? Who really gets it, who, shows exactly, hey, here's what could be done with the genre. Here's how we could take it further. And I follow that quite a bit, right? Like, I think if you guys remember when Path of Exile 2 came out, like at first, right? It was basically a Diablo 2 ripoff, right? And then they took it to crazy apeshit levels, right? Over the years. Like, they added so many things, they defined it, they polished it, and so on, until the crazy thing happened and they basically beat Blizzard at their own game, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we want to do as well, right? Where we put out a version and, like, hey, it's there, people can play it. But over time, especially with all the community feedback and so on, we will polish it to that level. We'll add more and more content. We'll add more and more depth. We'll make all of the systems deeper and so on, right? Until it's basically the forever game, right? That you just will want to play forever and ever. And that's I think where the strength is with Moon, because I'm pretty sure Blizzard at this point must be working on Diablo 5 already. And
they are,
right? Yeah, they are. And I would shit my pants a little bit if I would be them, because there's this whole problem in the industry, right, where 9 women can't make a baby in a month, right? It doesn't matter how many people you employ, right? If you have to create that base, that will take you a good 4, 5, 6 years now, right? And if you then want to compete against the other stuff that is already on the market, that has a huge advantage on you. And that, by the way, is exactly what we saw with Diablo 4, right? That there was no chance in hell that Blizzard could keep up with the complexity that was already in Path of Exile, right?
Yeah.
And with the depth of the systems and so on, they just could not do it, even with 1,000 developers, right? And with Moon, it's the same thing, right? Like, I want the teams to have a lot of freedom. At the same time, they have to be at the top of their game and just have them fucking jam, right? Until we have so much stuff in the game, until it's so perfected that everybody plays it and everybody gets it, right? Simply because it's one of those evergreen titles that is just so much fucking fun.
I wanted to talk about my playthrough experience with you for just a little bit. And it's just my opinion, just my experience. As someone that plays PoE, Diablo, I main Last Epoch. Like, I love isometric action RPGs. So I played Wicked 3 or 4 times. I always made it to the mining town, and then I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I got an idea for it. So it was this last playthrough that I beat the whole campaign and explored the end game for a little bit. I had 3 points that I wanted to talk about. One, you've already discussed, the attribute system and the illusion of choice, which is great. A point that I wanted to ask you to see if you've ever considered is the the ability to tinker with your build early on. So, like, I'm going all great sword and strength and focus, and it's like, no, this sucks. All right, I want to switch to stamina and dual daggers. No, that sucks. I want to try mage. But, you know, you can't switch.
The class system fixes all of that. Yes.
Okay, so being able to tinker and try stuff early on in the game without having to go through the crucible to respec and do all that.
You will literally just switch your weapon, and now you're leveling into that class. And then you can just check where you are with those classes in the class screen.
Okay, that's good. Point number 3. And
that's the problem with attribute systems, by the way, right? Like, so let me.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Elaborate there a little bit, right? So that the problem with attribute systems has always been that most people follow a build guide, right? Like, because there's like at this point we are talking about maths, right? And so most people don't want to put in the work. Like, even if you look at how people played Path of Exile, right? There were always the 0.1% that actually did the work and figured out here's all the builds, right? And then 99.9% of everybody else, right, just basically followed the build guide so that they understood, like, didn't even use the attributes and so on, and just really wanted to kind of like get a good build where that would smash everything.
They never have to worry about respecking because they're following the formula, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But if you fuck it up, the problem with an attribute system is that, well, the only recourse is the reset, right? It's the respec. And that just feels a little bit like meh, right? That just feels like a redo, right? And so the class system, the whole idea is, and I do think that Yasumi Matsuno is the developer who did Final Fantasy Tactics and who basically already did this with Tactics Ogre in the early 90s and so on, right? I think he really stumbled onto something that the industry hasn't fully appreciated. And I hope that we will be able to show that a little bit, right? That the systems and the stuff that he built, there was some magic there already. And some of that attribute stuff, like the whole idea that you have to respec, if you fucked up, you absolutely get rid of that with that system. So it will be really interesting to see how people will react to this.
Yeah, and it's not even just messing up, it's just wanting to try everything. I don't know if I want a two-handed sword or I want to play mage, but not being able to test both doesn't feel great. Okay, that's awesome. The third point, and I think this one might be a little more controversial, based upon your guys' kind of vision for the game, is just having maybe just one more step of like direction. I don't think it's talked about very much, but Wicked, when you're going through the campaign, is in some ways kind of a puzzle. You go into the new area, you got to fight the enemies kind of in a Souls-like combat as you're looting and finding hidden areas, which is a lot of fun. But you also have to solve the puzzle on how to progress. It's not just killing, it's finding out where to go. I was hoping you could kind of talk about that as far as how you want the game to actually play. Does that make sense?
Well, some of this stuff is also just tutorialization and so on, right? And that was, frankly, not the highest priority item, the high order bit for early access, right? Simply because we just wanted to get the game out and have people try it. But some of that stuff is just tutorialization. And with tutorializations, I don't mean just putting up a screen every time there's a new mechanic that we introduce, and now you have to read a whole page or two or something, right? It's also the whole thing of like creating mind tricks with the player, right? Like this whole fake learning thing, right? Where we have you go through stuff, and then just by going through stuff, you learn that already, right? I'll give you a good example. So with Ori, with the Ori games, for example, one thing that we did always was Ori was pretty simple in that regard, right? Where once you gain double jump, we put you into a room, like when you learn the double jump, we put you into a room that you couldn't get out of until you used the double jump, right? Like you had to use double jump to actually get out of that room. So you had to use it and learn it. And then once you have that first thing where the player uses it, now he can, now something clicks in his mind, right? These how do you call that? Like brain things, right? Like get created, right? And like they're now making use of that. And that's, I think, what we're lacking a little bit. Just there's lots of little side quests and stuff that we are adding that will just make sure that you that you understand all the stuff way in a better fashion, right?
Yeah,
that you just learn it immediately, intuitively, instead of, oh, you have to look it up, or
exactly.
I skipped the tutorial and now I don't get it.
I think right now the way it currently stands, and like you said, it's gonna get updated. It's like I enter the sewers and I gotta find this exclamation point on the map, and it's just you just run in circles killing stuff until you find it, which would lead people to potentially getting frustrated, to then opening up a second window, interactive map, sewers, no rest for the wicked. Oh, I've got to do this, which like I feel like if it's ever requires a third-party tool, like it's not designed probably the best way, unless you want it to be that puzzle. Hey, you enter the sewers and you've got to figure it out. Like that is the design philosophy for Wicked, is you have to use your brain. You got to kill all the enemies. You'll find all the side zones while you're exploring, and by doing that, you'll figure it out. I don't know what that middle ground looks like, but those are my 3 points. Direction.
I mean, that is
respecting.
definitely the end goal, right? And we didn't prioritize that enough in early access, obviously, because it was early access, right? Because we thought, hey, if we have to drop something, it's probably the tutorialization, right? And in some ways that hurt us, right? Because some people played the game without even understanding that, oh, there's different ways of healing in the game, right? We made that very clear now with Breach Refined, right? It's like, hey, we actually start you with the heal spell now,
which is
so you don't have to
which
first
is great,
acquire it.
Which is absolutely great, by the way. Big difference,
right? But I mean, that's the funny thing, right? Like a lot of it is about psychology, because we did have heal in the game already. You just had to go to Eleanor and buy it and equip that. But like players didn't really get to that point, right? Or like didn't fully understand it at first, and then they already played 30 hours and so on. There was a funny thing that I saw when Donkey, the video game Donkey, played Dark Souls, right? He made a funny comment about, oh my God, like he played the entire game without understanding that he could upgrade his Estus flask, right? And it's like, wow, that's such a base mechanic, right? Of like, hey, you can upgrade your heal, right? And a lot of people play Dark Souls and don't even understand that, right? That it's like, okay, well, obviously you should upgrade your heals, because otherwise the game will be really fucking hard. But that's the thing that Dark Souls always does. That's why I think a lot of people are kind of like turned off of Dark Souls, right? Because you do have to kind of like read up on it a little bit and use use a wiki and so on if you really want to understand how it plays. And by the way, I mean, I do think that is true for most ARPGs. Even Path of Excellence Zone, right? Like most people use a build guide and use wikis and so on. And to some degree, I think you will always have some of that, but obviously the end goal is, yeah, you should not have to use a wiki to play the game. The game should explain itself in many ways. There's going to be things like in Sacrament, there's a whole library where you can go and then, hey, it explains stuff to you and you can do quests there. And then those quests actually explain mechanics to you and so on and so on, right? So everything should be in the game.
And I want to be clear, like I'm not asking for like hand holding, which a lot of games do. There's games that go as far as like literally light the path on the ground and you just follow it and then you made it to the next marker. So like I really hope you guys don't put that in Wicked.
That's not our intention. The idea is to do it through quests and other fun stuff, right? Where it's like you stumble across it naturally, like that's the idea. That you just play the game and because you did those quests and so on, it introduced those mechanics to you. And once you've been introduced to it and once you've been encouraged to use it, now something clicks in your head. Okay, now I have that available to me, right? So that's the way. The plan isn't to kind of like show you with a golden path, hey, here's exactly where you have to go every time, right? But to just basically make sure that we employ the same techniques that we used before in our games, right? Where we just encourage you through questing and all of that kind of stuff to use certain mechanics. And once the players use them, now they're aware, right? And that's the idea.
Got it.
So specifically, a lot of new players I noticed didn't have any idea how to use Fallen Embers until far into the game. So that's something that I'm sure will have a tutorial of some type. But something you did very well, when you get to the first town and they're like, hey, it's a huge town, you get overwhelmed. They're like, you got to go to the Rookery. And then you're just walking through the town and every guard's like, hey, you make sure to go to the Rookery. And they're like pointing to the direction of where you need to go. As a new player, that was very helpful. I was just like, where do I go? It's like, hey, Rookery, that way.
And that's exactly what we mean, right? That it's just, hey, the world should be interactive. The world should explain itself and everything to the player in a natural way, right? Like it shouldn't just be new mechanic, bam, huge tutorial screen, right? And then new mechanic, bam, huge tutorial screen. Like you also don't want that. I saw some of that in Elden Ring as well, right? Like the Elden Ring experience in the first hour is literally like, oh, did you know you could parry? Bam, huge, 2-page screen. Oh, did you know you could use this mechanic? Boom, 2-page screen. And it's like, fucking let me just play the game, right?
Yeah.
And the idea should always be like with a good teacher, right? What a good teacher will accomplish is that he does these head fakes where he gets you to do something and then something clicks, right? And now you get it, right? And that's such a more compelling way to teach somebody something compared to, oh, open your book and read page 1 to 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Cool.
Yeah. Quick question about just going back to the class system. Is that going to be a replacement for making a new character? You can have like all your different classes on one character with possibly when you switch to your class, it's like a different loadout? Or you're gonna have to keep
that's
redoing
something
your
that we're still so that's something that we're still discussing, right, internally. Like that's something that we're still testing. The whole thing of like, do we allow you to literally master every class with one character, or do we limit it in some way, right, where it's like, okay, like you can only get up to 6 classes or so mastered with one character, and then you have to create a new one or something, right? I don't know yet. Like we'll have to test and like see what's the most fun. But personally, I'm veering more towards the Final Fantasy Tactics thing, right? Where it's like, just let the player explore, do his thing, and let them build whatever fucking character they can come up with, right? Don't give them any barricades that they can't know of at the start. Just let them do their thing, right? Because
that's probably the right
feasible.
Decision. Yeah, I think that's...
I think so too, but there's always people that, like just want the whole... But you have to commit, right? And we'll have to see, right? Like it's all about testing. I do think the whole Final Fantasy Tactics approach is the correct one for an ARPG, which is a super fucking weird thing to say, right? Because it's not even the same genre. But I do think that's the right the right thing to do. That you basically unlock all these features, but then it's still on the player to really put that class together, because a class then means, okay, I have to have the right equipment, meaning what's the weapons that I use, what's the armor that I use, what are the rings that I use, what are the specials that I use, and that basically defines your class then, right? And what are all the character traits and so on that I put on me, right? But then basically arbitrarily lock in that to, and you only get a certain amount, right, of decisions that you can make, I think feels too restrictive.
Yeah.
I think we should just allow players to do everything. But if you really want to do everything, I mean, goddamn, you're going to spend 1,000+ hours in the game.
I mean,
Nice.
since there's no ascendancy or class system or mastery
Who said
system,
there isn't?
where you kind of have a blank slate, it really wouldn't make sense, at least just my opinion, that I'm forced to start another blank slate when I've already leveled this one, when I could just switch out the gear. I don't know, that just doesn't, I guess that doesn't really
There
make sense
is
to me.
one system that one of our designers came up with back then, right? There's generally, if you look in the ARPG genre, right, is that some games employ NG+, right? Meaning, hey, I finished the game, now I can start the game again with different stats, etc., and I take over the character that I already had, right? And the other model
Torment
that people...
2. Sorry,
right.
go on.
Yes.
The other model that people use now, Diablo 4 and Path 2 and so on do that, right? And I would like to actually hear from you guys, right? Because we got quite a lot of shit from players when we wiped for the breach, right?
Loved it.
Yeah, so it's controversial, right? There's a certain group of players who never want to restart, right? But there is something about ARPGs where it's the journey is the goal, right? The journey of making that character and so on is the goal. At the same time, you have to kind of make sure that it works for both player types, right? For the ones that never want to reset, and then for the ones that do want to reset. And one of the things that we came up with back then was a rebirth system, where you could basically finish your character and then make the decision to basically kill your character and get some innate stats that you could then take over to a fresh character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I personally like this seasonal games, restarting from the beginning. I think Last Epoch does it pretty well, where it's the Eternal Realm has anything new for this season, you can continue playing your character on that realm. No big deal. People who are scared of restarting don't have to do it. But I also hey, I want to make a fresh character. I don't want access to millions of gear, all my respec items, and I just want to see how well I do this season, this time around. Right. And maybe I'll get that crazy unique that I wanted that I haven't gotten earlier or something. I like it, but yeah, there's a lot of people. If you don't like the ARPG genre, the classic Diablo 2 seasonal style, there's a lot of hate for that. They do not want that. So it's hard to navigate, I would say.
I wish I had some of the internal numbers from Diablo, Last Epoch, and PoE on what percentage of people play standard versus what percentage of people play season. In the content creation world, which is YouTube, Twitch, all the streaming services, it is almost a requirement for you to go seasonal. It's just that's what you do. But in, I don't want to say in the real world, I don't know what that percentage split even is. If you were watching Twitch and it was a new season of whatever game and the person was playing standard, to be what, I don't even, how's that even, it's not even possible to do that. But I don't know how popular it is. Frosty brings me a good point. Last Epoch's making 2 games, so basically standard and season, so you can continue your character, you could start fresh, it's your choice.
And I think that's what it ultimately has to be, right? You have to respect the players who want the forever game, who just want to keep playing the safe, who just invest all of the time into that, right? And at the same time, you want to have something there for people that just want to start fresh and get a full new experience. So yeah, it's almost like making 2 games, right? But I do think you have to respect both player bases, because both have a point, right? I completely get it. If I played a Super Nintendo RPG or something and that would reset all my stuff every 2 months or so, I would probably also be upset, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, with ARPGs, it has become a thing, and it's there for a good reason, right? Because the journey ultimately is the goal. But I think with the class system and all these changes that we're making and so on, the people that want a forever game will get their forever game. And then I do think there's a lot of fun that we can have with just, okay, start the game fresh. Here's a whole new rule set that we implemented. Enjoy. It's fucking different and crazy now.
Okay.
The people who are super into decorating their houses might be the most upset by going into a new season. But I think PoE has a way of copying your house to a season. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Aaron?
your hideout stays with you, so you don't have to reset your stash. You don't have to reset your hideout. You still have all your cosmetics. So really, it's just the characters, your items, your level, rebuilding the character, but those types of things maintain.
So that would basically be what the rebirth system would do for us, right? So if you want to start a whole new build, and then gain something from that, right? Then you would do the rebirth mechanic, right? Where it's like, hey, the game stays the same, the realm progression is the same, your house would stay the same, but you can start from scratch and you get a bonus on top.
Okay, but by starting from scratch means you don't have access to the items, but your upgrades are the same, your house is the same, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good. I like that.
Frosty, final scene between two portals. Yep. Moving to our hot seat for Mr. Thomas. All right, you are now between two portals. This is where we do rapid fire questions that are at times spicy and also silly. So at any time, if you want to just say pass, feel free to say pass. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Frosty, you can go first. Unless you want me to go.
Okay. If you can eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pizza.
What's a better game, Diablo 4 or Path of Exile 2?
Path of Exile 2.
Do you use your Churchill pipe to intimidate other developers?
Church Warden pipe.
Church Warden, sorry. I'm not familiar with the pipes.
No, I just enjoy smoking my pipe, and I'm an ARPG developer now, so it fits.
What is your current morning routine?
Wake up at 9 a.m., take a shower, go to work till 2 a.m., do it all over again.
How many days a week?
Have you ever...
Sorry.
No, go on.
6 days a week.
6 days.
Have you ever rage quit while playing your own game?
No. I'm pretty fucking good at Wicked.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the Blizzard title Diablo 4?
6.
What is your current build you're playing in No Rest for the Wicked?
I have over 6 different builds right now.
Oh, what's your favorite?
I was about to say, what's your favorite?
I'm the old two-hand greatsword player, so that's my main usually.
That's why all streamers play two-handed greatsword, is because Thomas has made it the best. Now it makes sense, Frosty. I asked him last night, why the hell does everybody play that? That makes sense. What's your favorite PC game of adulthood? So let's just say high school and up. So like if you had to pick one game, like that was my staple.
Diablo 2.
Okay.
What made you decide to name it Moon Studios?
It's the JFK speech. It was the whole, we do it not because it's easy, but because it's hard, right? Not take shortcuts. Let's do the right thing for players, for us, that kind of thing. We don't do microtransactions at Moon. We don't do any of this shit. We do it the hard way, but we create masterpieces because that's what we set out to do.
Okay. Have you ever played the isometric action RPG titled Last Epoch?
No, I haven't.
Have you played Baldur's Gate 3?
Yes, I have.
What is your favorite food? And is it pizza?
Pizza.
What's your topping on your pizza?
Nothing. You just need tomato sauce, mozzarella. Everything else is shit.
Okay.
I know you've reworked bow like twice. Are you happy with the current bow, or is there still going to be reworks?
No, there's going to be reworks. Yeah, the bow gameplay, archer gameplay, range gameplay, and so on. I want to have my hands on this quite a lot.
Okay, awesome. When PvP comes, are you down to fight me and Frosty at the same time?
Of course. It'll be easy.
What? What?
Oh, jeez.
All right, now I got to practice more.
I have my own developer build, so there's
No, that you can't cheat. You got to make it yourself. Unbelievable.
Any plans to add gem crafting to the game, like a boar husk and like a potato makes like a life gem?
We are looking into deepening the crafting stuff in general, yes.
Okay. I know you can't give any details. Are you leaning more towards a seasonal model for Wicked Season 1, Season 2 with resets, or expansions, DLCs that are paid?
We are doing the expansion model. So the more of the Destiny type model, right? Where it's like every year there will be a huge expansion, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I like that. I like that because I was just going to ask, like, you know, the game's kind of cheap. It's like a $40 game. And it's like people want to support the game who love the game. It's like, how do they do that besides just buying a second game? I guess they wait for the expansion now. Any plans?
I hope people will buy a lot of games kind of like in multiplayer, right? Like just play it with your friends and so on, that kind of thing. But obviously for early access, we also don't want to, you know, nickel and dime players and so on. We just want them to be part of the journey, which is why it's $40 right now. That's it, right? Like we even did some sales now recently. And then when it comes out, we think the fairest thing for players is not, again, to nickel and dime them and like, hey, here's a horse skin for $60 and so on, because I think that feels really fucking cheap. I think the thing to do is just to tell players, like, hey, we've been working for a year on this expansion. Here's all the crazy fucking stuff that we added, and here's a cost, here's a price, and that's it.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, if one of your developers said, we can't increase inventory space because for some reason you load everyone who ever played Wicked's inventory space, how would you respond to him?
Can you say that question again? I'm not sure I get it.
Currently, there's a problem in Diablo 4. They say we can't increase inventory space. One of the developers tweeted out the reason, and it's because you load everyone else's stash tabs that is in your realm, even if you're not near them. That's why they can't increase the stash tabs.
That's just fucking stupid.
If your developer said that to you, how would you respond?
Get another job, because that's just fucking crazy.
Oh, jeez.
Is there any plans for a cosmetic shop, MTX, battle passes, anything from the cosmetic side where people can support the game?
No. And it feels like we're in a little bit of bizarre world now, because we got some shit recently for not having microtransactions in the game, which to me feels like, what the world is going on, you know?
True.
No, you're absolutely right. Last Epoch, again, a game I know you haven't played, we want a merch shop, we want cosmetics, we want supporter packs. Like, give us ways to support your game. They just don't want pay to win. Sorry, go on.
And I love that, right? Like, so players wanting to support us and so on, that's awesome. Like, I love to see that support and so on. It becomes strange when people get angry with us that we don't have microtransactions in the game, right? My headspace is still in, I don't know how to make the rewards work, where if you tie real money to rewards, then in order for people to buy those rewards, the rewards that cost money need to be obviously better than the stuff that you get for free, right? And I don't want to fall into this trap. I want people to just play the game and get a bunch of stuff through actually playing the game, not by flashing the credit card, right? I think the most fair approach is just, you know, like, hey, if you like Wicked, buy the expansions, you know, play the game with friends and so on, that kind of thing. Tell everybody to play it because it's fucking fun.
Okay.
What's one of the weirdest bugs that you've experienced in the game that you had to fix?
Oh, we had one where your gender just changed regularly, and that was fun. But I don't know, like bugs, there's always some crazy bugs.
My final question for you that I have, and then Frosty can ask as many as he wants. When you are not working, which I know it's all the time, and you have a family, what is like your relaxation time? Are you fishing? Are you hiking? Are you working out? Are you building a car? Like, do you have any hobby away from work and family that helps you relax?
Well, I'm an artist, so my relaxation time is making art, right? Like, so even like, and I consider everything that, right? Like, I think programming to some degree is an art form, right? I study traditional sculpture. I play with my kids, right? That kind of thing. I do stuff with them. But I never get bored. I'm not that kind of person, right? Like, I always have something to do.
Awesome.
I guess my final question is, right now, it doesn't really matter the gear that drops. You can re-roll any stat to look however you want. So it's almost like a transmog system. Yep. Is that why there aren't implicits on gear, or are you going to maybe one day have that? Or is that just how uniques work?
With the class system, we will make some changes to that, right? So that you will, you know, like, hey, with a sorcerer and so on, you will want to wear certain gear because it has certain bonuses and benefits and so on. That kind of thing. For now, for early access, we just wanted to make sure that, hey, people can mix and match and have their fun. But as we add more depth to the systems and so on, it'll become pretty clear what, you know, which direction we want to head you into, while we are still giving you, you know, like ways to just still wear whatever you want and so on.
All right,
awesome.
That's it for me.
All right. So, Thomas, last part of the podcast now is we're going to go back to the first scene, and we're just going to take some live Q&A from the audience, and then we'll get you out of here. You doing good on time? You all right?
I'm good.
All right. Time for Q&A. All right. You have survived being between two portals. Nice job, sir. Thank you for answering all the rapid-fire questions. So, audience, we are now streaming on 4 platforms. If you have a respectful, insightful question for Mr. Thomas, go ahead and put it in the chat, and me and Frosty will read them in our heads first and then ask them out loud.
First question, once the game launches for console, will there be crossplay?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that was always the idea. We always wanted to basically see Wicked as a platform, right? Where I can start a game on Steam on my PC, then switch over to my Switch 2 or something, keep playing my exact character and everything there, then play it on my Xbox or PlayStation 5 or something, right? And hey, you just log into your Moon account, everything is there, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Can you ask Thomas if they can add a dummy zone, like in Lies of P, to test runes? Basically a training dummy to Sacrament.
Yes, we can, and we will do that pretty soon.
Awesome.
Cosmetic pets, is that ever considered? A little Ori following you around?
It comes up again and again, but it's on one of those wish list items that we have. We'll have to see, you know, what happens with that.
You guys should like hide him in every zone. If you find Ori or something and he like moves around, that'd be a lot of fun.
I saw the Easter egg of him in the wooded area, the Marin Woods, I think. It's like a painting.
I hate how you know everything. Will we ever see a barbarian style class, more specifically spin to win, inside of Wicked?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
How many new zones are planned for 1.0 release?
I don't want to spill the beans on that yet, but it'll be another breach-sized kind of update.
Oh, nice.
Will you be able to queue up for PvP, or will it be restricted to co-op?
The idea is that we launch co-op first, and then we add PvP on top.
Okay.
You mentioned increasing vendor ranking. Will there be new vendors added?
Yes.
Do you have the net?
And Sacrament will still get expanded. The Sacrament that you guys have right now is still a smaller version of Sacrament, even though people still already feel it's expensive, right? but there's more planned. Yeah, so.
Oh man, this question is so long. There's a game called No Man's Sky. When they come up with the genius idea of new updates to feel natural, the players won't use a lot of resources. They already. Oh, this is just too long. Give me a shorter question. How big is the world in No Rest for the Wicked? You asked that, right?
I'll ask one. There are different statues in the Crucible area. Are those different statues going to be different end game activities?
Different modes. Yeah. So right now we only have one. We built the current Crucible in about 2 months, right? One of the statues, for example, is a Vampire Survivor style mode, right? Where you just go through that and you just fight hordes and hordes and have to upgrade, and so on. The other statue is one where you literally power level, do the entire ARPG experience in like 30 minutes or so, right? Where you start at level 1 again and then get to level, 30, 40, 50, 60 or something within a short period of time and so on. So the Crucible in many ways is where we just have fucking fun and put a lot of mechanics and stuff in there that doesn't really fit in the overworld, right? Where if people just want to smash stuff, there you go.
What do you think of the D2 style rune word system inside a Wicked?
I think, again, that goes to endgame depth, right? Like rune words only came in with expansion and so on.
Yeah.
I think it'll be the same thing here, that, there will be systems on top of the gear that will allow you to go absolutely crazy.
Frosty, do you want to read this question from Fusion? You know more about the game than me.
Any plans on making Seneschal? Seneschal cell. Okay, so the guy in the Crucible, when you're midway through,
Seneschal, yeah.
He can only sell you items, and sometimes you get there and it's like, oh, there's a really cool item. I don't have enough money, but I got a bunch of armor I can sell to him. You can't currently sell to him. Can you add selling to that character?
Yes.
Oh, I get what he's saying.
Yeah, we can. Yes, we can do that.
Let's see. Will armor sets be added in future expansion? Armor sets.
Of course.
Okay.
We already have armor sets in the game. I think what people mean is like set bonuses and so on. That's something that we are still thinking about, right? But adding more armors and so on, yes, of course, we will add more stuff.
And I guess also new runes, new powers, magic abilities. All that probably will come with the class system, I'm guessing.
So
go ahead.
even just with the runes and so on, right? Like I think in editor we have about twice as many already than we have in live. So there will be a lot of stuff. Right now, a lot of the runes that we have in the game are attack abilities. So one of the things that we want to add is more kind of like supporter stuff and buffs and debuffs and those kind of things, so that the depth in terms of combat also becomes deeper.
Okay. Modding tools or custom realms for 1.0?
Is not planned right now. That's something that you want to basically start, from the get-go. And we also use the quantum network engine. It's not that easy to mod Wicked. So it's not on the plan right now, but I'm pretty sure some crafty, smart people will find ways to do it anyway.
Of course. Any chance for custom difficulty, loot, etc. sliders for realms instead of easy, normal, and hard?
There will be a custom realm option where you can basically design the realm that you want to play, which I think is especially interesting for multiplayer, right? If we look at earlier FPS games and so on, like a lot of players that I talked to that played Halo back then, they also always played with custom settings, right? That made the thing fun for them. And I think the same thing should be true for realms, right? If you play a realm together with multiplayer, you want to be able to set that realm up in a specific way. We should allow you to do that.
Will there be some unique items for collecting in game? I'm assuming they're maybe referring to like how PoE has a rare headhunter that looks different, maybe cosmetically.
Again, that goes to the end game stuff, right? Like a lot of that kind of stuff we have categorized on the end game, because people just want really unique gear, rare gear that basically barely ever drops and so on, right? So yes, of course that will be there.
Man, there is so many questions. I played both Ori games, and I love platforming. Have you guys considered more ways of traveling? For example, grapple or something like that?
It's something I want to play around with. Yeah, so adding Sekiro-style grappling hook and so on would be super fun, right? The problem is always kind of like sequence breaking and those kind of things, but I think we're good on that anyway. So yeah, that's definitely something I want to play with in the future.
You mentioned with the class system, you'd probably want to be looking more like a mage or wearing more certain gear. There's going to be a transmog system, so you can play a mage but look like a knight.
People ask for that all the time. I think we will probably add something, but we don't want the kind of thing where it's like, hey, you look like you wear cloth armor, but in reality you wear plate and so on, because that becomes all kinds of weird once PvP hits and so on, right? It still has to make sense for that. But within those boundaries of design and so on, I think we can do something.
Is Thomas familiar with Sacred? Did it have any influence on the hardcore style of Wicked?
I never played it, no.
Okay.
Any plans on making hardcore and max difficulty more rewarding?
Yeah, so I mean, we just introduced realm tiers. Obviously, there will be more that we'll do with that stuff, right? And hardcore, I think, right now is a little bit too easy, meaning, hey, you don't actually lose your character. We just rank him down to a normal. I think there's some changes that we'll make there. And there's definitely some stuff our systems designers will want to improve there in terms of just giving you yet another reason to play it when you actually engage with that system. So maybe new loot or different bonuses and so on.
Is it possible to have like exchange systems? So this question is like, if I vendor 10 blueprints I already have, I could spit out one I didn't learn or something along those lines.
Some of that stuff we'll do with our crafting tables. So right now we only have X amount of crafting tables in the game. There will be more. There will, for example, be the scribe table where you can put items in like, hey, I have a blood-rusted sword, but I don't have the blueprint for it, but I want to use that weapon and turn that into my crazy thing, right? So now I can turn the blood-rusted sword into a blood-rusted sword blueprint.
Nice.
And then I can go to town and just keep crafting it and, make it again and again until I have the perfect version of it.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
PTR, is that going to be a closed or open PTR?
There is already a closed PTR. We already did this for the Breach and Breach Refined, where we let certain players from the community that just played tons of hours and have been really good with feedback and so on, play. We will expand that in the future. We already will use that now for the co-op and so on, right? So that people can just give us tons of feedback. Same thing with any of the features that we're doing, right? So yeah, PTR, we will expand more and more.
Do you believe in working in an office or working at home?
I did both. I think working from home is better. You just have to do the math. I used to drive 1 hour to work, which means 2 hours per day. That's 10 hours per week. That's 40 hours per month, which means per month you spend an entire work week commuting, which is just a fucking waste of human life, right?
Yeah,
That's crazy. So that sucks. And then when I was at Blizzard, the problem was like Blizzard back then was still the hottest company in the games industry, right? And even then you ran into the problems of, well, that person that we wanted to hire can't actually move to Irvine because kids are in college and or in school and so on. And that just ruins the whole thing, right? Like with Moon, the idea is we will hire the best fucking talent in the world. I don't give a fuck where they live, right? Like we literally have Israelis working with Palestinians at Moon and, like all of that stuff, right? Like we have a super crazy multicultural thing where everybody's making art together, right? And they all work together. And that's something that I'm really proud of, that it shows that it works, right? Like if you put a bunch of really talented people together, all of that fucking garbage goes away. They just want to make really cool stuff together.
That's awesome.
So, people really love the art style, especially the cinematics. Have you considered making a Wicked short animated series like Cyberpunk did?
There was some outreach already regarding this, right? Because obviously, like, the typical film things and so on, they're constantly looking for what are the new IPs that we could make shows out of. we are very protective of our IPs and of what we're doing, right? So even back then, like Amazon wanted to do an Ori movie or something, right? And like they sent us a script that was goddamn horrible.
Good.
Oh my gosh.
So we just have to be really careful that we just don't have another party that fucks up the thing that we're doing, especially in terms of story and so on. So we just obviously we're very interested in that, right? But it has to be a party that really gets what we're doing, really would want to put resources behind that and so on, and pay respect to the IP.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Amazon messing up an IP? That's not possible. I don't.
Or he gets a job at a tax accountant firm.
I mean, this happens all the time, right? Like this happens all, like you have some writers in Hollywood that take a stab at something and they don't even read or don't even like do any research on the actual IP and so on, right? And then they send something over and it's just, oh my God, like this is
Will you ever
bad. Let's not even start.
Will you ever leave Sakura and explore other islands and worlds?
Yeah, so the idea was so when I wrote the original script for Wicked, I basically wrote it extremely high level, right? And I wrote out the entire outline of the entire story, which basically takes us through how does the rebellion get created through the entire war, and then what happens basically at the end of it, right? And once we then sat down and made Wicked, it became clear that, well, like for 1.0, what we can do is basically act one of that story. And that's what 1.0 now will become, right? It's literally just the first act of the original draft. So then the idea would be with the expansions we follow up, that becomes the Act 2, and then the further expansions basically are Act 2, Act 3, etc. To finish up the full story. But that's the thing. Like Wicked was always supposed to be our Lord of the Rings or a Song of Ice and Fire and so on, right? So it's even after release, like it's a 10-year or so project because of the ambition is kind of crazy.
Wow.
You can upgrade a town and share it with your other characters. Is there any plans on making it when you learn a blueprint, that being account-wide and not character-specific?
We will definitely make some changes to the whole way the recipes and blueprints work and so on. Because right now, that's not ideal. We will definitely look into something like that.
What about guns in Wicked, like flintlock or something like that? No. People are saying, what about John Wicked?
No. We're not doing guns in Wicked. Okay. That opens up a whole can of worms that I don't want to get into.
Okay.
Now, we're almost at the top of the hour here. I got one question, and I'm sure this could have just been Googled, but there's a rare vendor in Sacrament. This person does not know how to find it or where it pops up. Can you just explain how to access that?
It's Finlay. So you can unlock Finlay in the Nameless Pass. It's a little bit hidden, obviously. And then he should show up in your realm every day from 8 p.m. to midnight.
Is that your specific local time?
Your local time, 8 p.m. to midnight, yes.
Yeah.
We want to do a lot more of that crazy stuff, by the way, like events and so on, right? Like I would want to have a Krampus Day where on the 5th of December, there's fucking crazy creatures roaming around in Wicked, right? And they only happen on that day and they drop certain loot that you can only get on that day. And so on, and like go a little bit crazy with this stuff, right? So to give players kind of like an incentive to play on specific days and specific times and that kind of thing. I think that's just fun, like making it event-based and so on.
Do you plan on releasing an updated roadmap for early access?
Yeah, but we want to do it in a more official manner, right? Like if you look at the roadmap that we already had, we basically flipped one of the things around, meaning multiplayer and the breach. So we did breach first, simply because we wanted to have, once multiplayer ships, we wanted to have a bigger world. And I think that was a good thing to do, because now the world is pretty big already. It will be even bigger at 1.0, but now once multiplayer ships, you have a pretty big world to explore, which is good. But then on top of that, we will have a more detailed roadmap pretty soon, but in a more official manner.
Awesome.
We took 2 hours of your time. Thank you so much for stopping by for the podcast today.
Let me actually finish this real quick. If you guys give me 10 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no,
So
you can
you
take as
folks
much
are-
time as you want.
You folks are more kind of like on the ARPG side and so on, right? Like if you look at the market right now, if you look at where ARPGs are, let's look at Diablo 4, let's look at Path of Exile, Last Epoch, those kind of things. And then let's also look at Wicked, right? And what we're doing. Where do you guys think things are right now? Like what's your general assessment of where is the ARPG genre, where we at, and what would you like to see in the future?
Holy smokes. Do you want me to go first, Frosty, or would you like to take it?
Yeah. I'm more of a casual gamer. Aaron is the ARPG guru here, so let's have him.
I mean, I don't know about that. There has been more than ever a push towards zoom seasonal build guide optimized playthroughs, one button build of action RPGs. If you watch people playing Last Epoch at high end, PoE, Diablo, most of the time you can't even see what's happening on the screen. It's one button, everything dies, and you literally just fly through the maps. And it's all about power and pushing the character to the limit. And weirdly, there's also lately, which is disheartening, almost like a push for, I am playing this season to break the game. I want the snapshotting mechanics. I want the bugs. I want the broken. I want the overpower. I'm literally going to try and break the game, and then I'm going to teach everybody how to break the game. That is where I mean, that's kind of where the genre is going. The exploring, the slowing down of gameplay, the intentional combat, the creating your own build. Like, I don't see a ton of that anymore. And even though I make build guides, and even though I'm the owner of actionrpg.com and we provide that, it actually is kind of disheartening when even when I'm streaming, it's like, oh, why aren't you playing this thing? This thing is a lot better. And it's like, oh, I don't know. I'm just having fun playing my own thing. So, the genre, as far as when you're looking at the Diablo likes, the Epoch likes, the Exile likes, it is going the opposite of Wicked. I think that's my opinion based upon seeing. Right now we're playing the new season 9 of Torchlight Infinite that just dropped, and it's like your build is not good unless you are hitting the training
Almost
dummy for a trillion damage. So unless you're peaking the training dummy's damage, you suck. Like, that's what I see.
I mean, I'm not as well versed as Aaron here, but typically with Diablo 4, you hit one button, you breeze through the whole game like in 4 hours. You get to end game, you play it for a day, you're done, you're fully maxed out. And you kind of have nothing to do, nothing's really fun. In Wicked, I enjoyed the meaningful combat, that it was hard in the beginning. I've beaten the game, I've done the Crucible like 100 times. I have a bunch of uniques. Now I made a second character, and this character does feel like I'm kind of breaking the game a bit. So I do like the possibility of having a season or a reset at some point, because now I'm kind of breaking the game. I have this like ring setup where I don't need to eat, I don't need mana, I'm just blowing stuff up, and it's cool, it's a lot of fun, I'm having a great time. But when you stay at that point for too long, it's kind of like, well, what do I do really? I mean, if there's fun end game content and there's stuff to progress, or just the Crucible in general is cool to go in and being like, what crazy abilities am I going to get? That's a fun thing. But also, when you play something like PoE 2, they started off very hard, and you went like you had to be like the meta build right off the gate. There was no like leeway there. It was like if you went the wrong skill, you're just not beating Act 1. And no matter how good you are, I guess if you dodged everything perfectly, maybe. I just wish we saw more of a, I guess, progression in those games where it's not just like it's hard the entire way through, it's easy the entire way through. With Wicked, I do feel like it was hard in the beginning. When you get to level 10, your build's kind of more online, and you're using a few different skills. And then in the end game, you can kind of get a little bit broken. I do like that. I don't know if this is really answering your questions. I'm just kind of rambling here, but that's just my opinion.
I'm just generally always interested in where people think the journey goes next, right? And in many ways, like that's the job of the developer, right? Like we have to decide a whole bunch of stuff on like, oh my God, that specific thing hasn't really been done with the genre yet, and we're testing it and we're prototyping it and we feel super fun and so on, right? But I feel like we're still, like there's still a bit of stagnation in this genre. And that's what we want to break open, right? I generally am a little bit concerned. I think Blizzard is in a pretty tough spot. They lost a lot of their talent and so on, right? And who knows who the current people are that shepherd Diablo and so on. I don't know any of these people anymore. And obviously, I also have concerns about grinding gear, right? They lost Chris Wilson, who's been the guy behind the curtains for over a decade, right? And even though I think there's a lot of ARPGs that came out, right? And obviously also the last Epoch guys are pushing and so on. I want to see the genre get to that next level, right? To the level of like, can we see a jump in ARPG still from that was similar to Super Mario World to Mario 64, right? That kind of thing, where it's just, okay, this is a leap, right? This is really taking it to the next level. Part of it is, I think, the platform thing, that you could play it in multiple different ways and every one of those is fun. But I think there's still something out there that all of us are kind of it's almost like going to Mars, right? Like there's a clear goal, but we all have to kind of like find out what is the way to reach that. And that's what we're looking for.
It's my opinion what's going to be and you've already dealt with this. I think the hardest part for Wicked will be the marketing of the game. I covered this on YouTube early on, even before early access, and it's, obviously everyone always talks about the tweet, like, Diablo, Path of Exile, we're coming for you. And then, you see the gameplay, and it's like, this is the most beautiful isometric action RPG. The sound is awesome. The combat is awesome. The visuals are awesome. And the studio that brought us Ori, that everybody loves, is literally calling out the two big dogs. Like, oh, man, the little guy's coming after them, and they're creating this handcrafted world. And then you play Wicked, and it's like you're dying on the boat because you don't realize that it does play different. So then it's like, well, wait, are you a Diablo-like isometric action RPG, or are you an isometric Souls-like Dark Souls? Because then I think to the player base, you're like, well, why are you even talking about Diablo? Because your game isn't like Diablo, right? So I don't know how you bridge that gap. And I know now I'm just kind of rambling too, but I think that is going to be a huge part for Wicked and just getting the name out and moving forward, especially without the seasonal model, because they're going to be like, okay, when's season 1? And it's like, there is no season 1. This is like Grim Dawn. This is like Titan Quest, where we're going to do DLCs.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, our marketing folks are currently talking and thinking through a bunch of this stuff, right? On like, how do we get the message out there? How do we make it perfectly clear to everybody, right? To some degree, also, I do want to stay in this thing of like, I don't want to be boxed in, right?
For sure.
I want Wicked to be like not like, I don't want to fall into, oh, it has to be either like Diablo or a Souls game, right? I think the goal is, no, we'll craft something fresh and new. And hopefully we'll find our own niche, and hopefully it's not a small niche, right? Hopefully it's a pretty big one. But it's similar to Apple back then, right? Apple in the early 2000s, like, didn't have a lot of, like, they had like, 2% market share or something, right? And then by doing more and more stuff and so on, and then ultimately doing the iPhone, right? That's where it blew up. I think there's a magic formula that you have to hit where you just craft the experience so it's the thing for most people, right? That's what we were going to get to. We don't want to craft the next Souls game or the next Diablo game. We want No Rest for the Wicked to be No Rest for the Wicked. And that's difficult because it's like it comes with, teaching the audience that, oh, there's a new thing, right? Like, and it doesn't play like the old thing that you already know, right? It has its own thing going on, but engage with it because you'll get a shit ton of fun out of it.
Yeah, you're almost trying to like make your own genre. You want it to be like Wicked-like,
Exactly. That's what I think will happen. By the way, I do think, like, I do think, because this has already happened before, right? When we released Ori, Metroidvania, there were other studios. Like, I know EA basically told me back then that they opened up a whole new studio and made Fe just to kind of like compete with Ori, right? Because with Ori, you sold 15 million copies, which is crazy. Like that was just nuts. And so even Insomniac did Song of the Deep or something, right? And they all kind of found out that, oh, it's actually not that easy to make a 2D Metroidvania, right? It's fucking brutally difficult because of the genre that it is. I think a lot of people ultimately will take some of that stuff over that we're doing with Wicked, and I think that's a good thing. The idea generally is to push the genre forward, to do all the things at Moon, because that's what we can do that a Blizzard couldn't do, a Grinding Gear couldn't do, right? Where we try to push the genre into new directions and innovate full front, right? Like on every single thing that we can, to find that new audience and to find, like to get people engaged with it. Because you're not going to get that out of Blizzard and so on. They're not, like, even with Diablo 4 already, they had this problem, right? Where initially they had Josh Moscara working on it, who basically wanted to do Souls like Diablo, and Blizzard immediately burned it down, right? And was like, this is not Diablo, you can't do that, right? And it's just, shit, I would have really liked to see that version, right? From the guy who made Reaper of Souls, right? That I would have wanted to see
This is not
that
Diablo.
version, something new. Yeah.
Diablo 2 started like that. That's if you played Diablo 2 when it first came out, they didn't have mana pots. If you missed your fireball, it was a big deal.
You're in
so
trouble.
when they're saying this isn't Diablo, they're saying this isn't like Diablo 3. Like
I think that's
different.
the problem in the thinking, right? That it's just this whole, oh, it has to be exactly the same as the other thing, just with better graphics and so on, right? But if you think that way, well, you will never reach the next big thing because you're constraining yourself to what was already done before, right? That's where I think we all have to be a little bit okay with, no, it's not Diablo and it's not Souls. It's a new thing, right? And that's okay. And let's appreciate that and let's just get into it. But it's difficult in terms of marketing, right? Like people want a simple, clear message. I get that as well, but we'll have to see.
When people buy Madden 25 compared to Madden 24, they know exactly what they're going to get, right? When people buy No Risk for the Wicked 1.0, it's just a very natural, like, what is this game? So, like, I'm going to play it. I've seen the previews. I like the marketing. What is the experience going to be? And I do think you guys are setting up for a way that you could pull the Dark Souls audience. You could pull the Diablo audience. You could pull the people that love audio and visual and handcrafted world. And you are setting up the game to be able to be huge for multiple audiences, what I think is great. It's just about how do you communicate it? I have no idea.
Aaron, that's the trick. I want all of them, right? I want the people who are into Souls games to play Wicked. I want the people who are into Diablo to play Wicked. I want the people who play Zelda to be into Wicked. We even talked to Nintendo about that recently, right? Regarding Switch 2 and so on, and what could we do on that platform, right? That makes it stand out, etc. But ultimately, I want everyone, right? Ultimately, Wicked should become a game that sells 20, 30, 40 million copies or something, right? So we'll have to see. But yeah, we will have to do some smart stuff in terms of marketing and communication to make sure that people get it. And yeah, there's just some brain power we need to spend on that.
By the way, the fact that you said you've never played Last Epoch, I know you don't have it, but I'm going to send you a copy, and we're going to play the new season for a few days. You're
it's fine. I want to support the developers. I'm always the kind of guy, right? Like I don't want a free copy. If the developers did a good job, I want to buy my own copy so that they get a little bit of support.
I just got into Last Epoch when on launch, and you asked about like pushing the genre forward.
Correct. Yes.
The one thing in particular I'm going to say definitely take note of is their end game faction systems. That is one of the best parts that I've seen recently in the past, like probably 5 years in ARPGs. It's like, you like going solo self-found, they have a faction for that. You like going trade, they have a faction. They have like an end game Uber boss farming faction. And it's just like, instead of Paragon Conspergestion getting like 1 point of stamina, that's the kind of their end game grind, and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. And it's a studio it's a studio very close to the same size as you. 11th Hour Games just broke 100 people there, and they're a fully remote studio. It just, I don't know, I see so many correlations, and they are obviously Grinding Gear Games, Blizzard, they are making a zoom action RPG, but character customization, pacing is slower, and trying to push the industry in a different way. That's their goal. So I think you'd enjoy it.
They seem like nice people. They reached out to us when we first introduced Wicked and so on, right? And wanted to shoot the shit and so on. So yeah, I would like, it would be fun to actually have a chat with all of you folks, right? Like it would be fun if we could have, you know, some of the last Epoch developers here, maybe someone from Grinding Gear, maybe someone from Blizzard, maybe me, right? Because ultimately we are all trying to kind of like push the ARPG genre forward, right? And to basically craft experiences that will excite players like crazy, right? So having a fireside chat or something with all of us, right, that basically represent these IPs, that would be super fucking cool.
I don't know if they would agree to it. I will reach out to each studio to see if they're willing to do that. But normally it's like,
but that would be stupid to not agree to it.
They well, it's always risk. So like, oh, if they say something, or you know, I don't know. It's just I will ask. That would be awesome.
See, but that's why it's stupid. Like you have to have an open discourse and an open conversation. And if you're so strangled by your marketing and PR team because somebody could say something stupid, I mean, fuck off. You know, at some point it's just no, like.
But that's what
just
I mean.
Be out there, be open, be honest, you know, that kind of thing.
For sure. I will ask. Do you have any other questions for me or Frostylaroo, good sir? We could hang out here all day. So
I think it would be interesting to add you guys to the PTR stuff, right? So you could test kind of like the features that we're doing early. And so you could give us some feedback. We're generally doing that with streamers and so on, and with people that are hanging out on our Steam, on our Discord forum, and like some of the Steam users that have played many hours and so on, right? So we're adding more and more people, and like there's always some experimental features that we want to push, and like let's see how people react to this.
Okay,
I'm down.
No, that sounds awesome. I absolutely love that. All right, good. Frosty, Tom, guys, good.
I'm good. This was a great podcast.
Dude, this podcast was awesome.
So much.
Yeah, Thomas, we really appreciate
Warden Pipe.
Church Warden. Yes.
There we go.
You have to try it. We have to do a special edition that comes with a Church Warden pipe. That would be
I'll get like one that does like bubbles.
Oh my gosh. No Rest for the Wicked. Their Breach update is out. It's a really fun game. You guys should check it out. This VOD will be posted on my channel and Frosty's channel. And I'll see if I could set up a podcast in the future with some developers from some other studios. I think that would be absolutely awesome. Thomas, thank you for coming out today. We really appreciate it. If you guys didn't know, Thomas got back from his family vacation yesterday, and he's sick, and he just did 2 hours and 13 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes straight. So unbelievable.
It was super fun. If you guys want to do that again after the next updates and so on, I'm
definitely.
And obviously, if the whole dev thing happens, fireside chat with all the ARPG developers, I'm game. Let's do it.
Dude, that is awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to do the post show now, get some feedback on it. I'm going to let Frosty and Thomas go. Thanks, guys, so much. We'll chat in a minute. See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Town Portal Podcast, where the gamers unite, along with Aaron and Frosty. We're taking flight today.